Welcome back to our continuing examination of the story of Jesus as told by Jesus' apostle Matthew the tax collector. Matthew chapter 17, and we are going to be reading verses 24 to 27. I'm going to be reading out of the Amplified New Testament. When they arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the half shekel, the temple tax, went up to Peter and said, "Does not your teacher pay the half shekel?" He answered, "Yes." And when he came home, Jesus spoke to him about it, first saying, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do earthly rulers collect duties or tribute? From their own sons or from others not of their own family?" And when Peter said, "From other people, not of their own family," Jesus said to him, "Then sons are exempt." However, in order not to give offense and cause them to stumble, that is, to judge unfavorably and unjustly, go down to the sea, throw in a hook, take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find there a shekel. Take it and give it to them to pay the temple tax for me and for myself. Now, when I read a passage like this, I go back to my days of English literature in high school, which was a long time ago at this point. And in particular, I think of some of the work we did on William Shakespeare. Now, as I recall in the fuzzy recesses of the dark corners of my mind, that one of the things that we talked about is that Shakespeare had a technique, and I think this was especially true in his more serious dramas, where every once in a while he would throw in a scene that was designed to provide a sense of comic relief. You know, he didn't want the tension to get so high and so tight. He brought it back down with a bit of comic relief. Now, I'm not saying that is what is happening in verses 24 to 27 of Matthew 17. I'm not going to say that is Matthew's intent. I'm not going to say that Matthew is trying to be Shakespearean in his writing. But I cannot help but read these verses and light up the other verses behind it and see it almost in that sort of Shakespearean way where it just kind of provides a sense of comic relief as a drama is getting very thick and heavy. It is a wonderful little snippet from the life and ministry of Jesus. Jesus here is asked by Peter whether he is obligated to pay the temple tax. The temple tax is what helped to keep the temple in Jerusalem functioning. A huge property with staffing, animals, etc. A lot of money required to keep it going. The temple tax was not only paid by Jews living within Palestine, but there are records of it being paid outside. And it was a major influx of currency within the country, the Palestine within the city of Jerusalem. And so it was, in that sense, economically speaking, a huge part of the local economy. There are records that indicate the amount raised for this tax was substantial. The argument here of Jesus is a very basic and simple one, and that is that since the temple was the house of God the King, and he was the Son of God the King, he was not required to pay that tax. And this argument comes straight out of the world of Jesus. And the world of that day, it was not considered normal for sons to pay taxes to their father, the king. Jesus' argument has 2 points, and we need to see what these are. On the one hand is the idea of privilege. He was a son and therefore not required to pay. But that is balanced, on the other hand, by the fact that what is right is not going to stand in the way of what is best to do. Jesus was willing to turn aside from what was right and do what was best, which in this case was to pay the tax. Here is a key element of what it means to be a Christian. A Christian is a person who learns that though I have rights, I will not allow those rights to get in the way of doing what is best. I might have the right to be first in line at the express line at the grocery store, but at the same moment I see a mother with twin toddlers and I forego my rights because I was there first and do what is best and allow her to go ahead of me. I am the one that should be recognized as being the impetus behind the launching of this new ministry. But for the sake of the harmony of the church, I am willing to let go of that right and allow someone else to be recognized as providing leadership. It's not a case of what is right, it is about a case of what is best. The point is, what is right is not always about what is best, and if we allow what is right, we can all times destroy the life and work of the church because we get caught up with what is right and not what is best. Now, when you look at this passage, I'll go out on a limb and say that this passage is not ultimately about fishing. It is not about the fact that you're coming to the end of the month and the bills are going to pile up, including mortgage or rent, car payment, who knows, utilities, whatever, and you need a few extra dollars, so you go down to the lake and catch a few fish, and you'll get a few silver dollars and can top up the bank account. No, I don't think that's what this passage is about. And when I read this passage, I also kind of have to step back and, kind of wonder, what did the other 11 think about this? I mean, they would have had to pay the temple tax. Did Jesus send them down to the lake to go fishing? Or did they have to dig out of their own bank accounts? I don't know. There are always questions that we can ask of Scripture, but cannot answer. We need to be aware that there are questions we can ask, but we will never know the answers. And with that, there's always ways we can misuse the Scriptures. Do not use this passage as a means to justify the idea that if I'm short of a few shekels, I'm to go down to the lake and do some fishing. What we need to do is to allow the Scriptures to speak where it needs to speak, and respect the fact that some Scriptures are going to leave us with some questions. I'm not sure why Matthew included this story, but I bet he had his reasons. Unfortunately, he has not told me what those reasons are.